Hi, and welcome to the Shane Plays knee-jerk, spoiler-free review of Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. Now, it's spoiler-free because it's spoiler-free, so feel safe to watch this if you haven't seen the movie yet, but you're curious to know a little bit more about it, and you don't want it spoiled. It's knee-jerk because I just saw the movie literally a couple hours ago. Came home, had something to eat, and kind of made some notes, and also it's knee jerk because I haven't read anybody else's reviews. I've seen very little other reviews, maybe just a little bit here and there, little quotes. So I didn't want it to be affected by other people's reviews or opinions. I just wanted to get my thoughts out there. So um, that being said, it's right now the movie, which really surprises me, has a 31% on Rotten Tomatoes. This is March 24th. It's not even midnight yet, so the movie doesn't even officially open until tomorrow. But they have the advance screenings, and I went and saw it tonight, Thursday night. I saw it in RPX, which it's at a Regal theater, which means that's kind of their version of IMAX. I don't think it's quite as big as IMAX, but it's big, and I guess in a higher definition. It wasn't 3D. I'm not a big 3D person. I guess if a movie's specifically made for 3D, I'll check it out for that. But other than that, I'm just not a big 3D person. The sound was fine and all that, but I didn't have to have all the bells and whistles. And the reason I went to um, even the RPX version was because it was at 6 o'clock, which I figured I could beat some of the mad rush. And the theater was still pretty packed. So. Um, all right, so 31%. A couple of days ago on Rotten Tomatoes, like last night or the day before, I was like, wow, this movie's at 39%. And that really surprised me because, a lot of the superhero movies over the past few years have gotten pretty good ratings. So, the critics like them, the people like them. And so I was a little surprised by that. And it's actually gone down. It's at 31% now. So I just want to say, I don't think it deserves a 31%. Now, I don't think that it is as good as far as having a wide appeal to a general audience as like some of the Marvel movies, like Avengers and Captain America, all that. Uh, I think those are tighter paced, better put together movies that anybody can enjoy. I don't think the Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice hits that note like a lot of the Marvel movies have been. Um, and in fact, it's really kind of uneven in its pacing. Now there's some good stuff too. I want don't get me wrong. I think that if you're an action flick fan, or if you're a superhero movie fan, comic book fan, go check it out. You'll like it. There is a lot to like, but it's not as tight and strong as a lot of the Marvel movies. So I just wanted to lay that out there. It's uneven, in its pacing in a lot of ways. In fact, it starts slow and then it picks up and gets more engaging. It comes together pacing wise about halfway through the movie. So it almost feels like two different movies because the first part of the movie is almost kind of jarring at times. The editing and the pacing is kind of all over the place, and it's just all this stuff going on. Um, and then about halfway through the movie, it comes together and you get more engaged, or at least I did, and it felt like the pacing was better and more of like an even, well-edited movie. Uh, why the first? Maybe they were just trying to introduce too much, or the setup, or the editing. I don't know. I mean, for example, uh, and this doesn't have anything to do with the uneven editing or the uneven pacing, but there was stuff they were putting in there I wasn't sure was necessary. For example, they retell and I don't think this is a spoiler because everybody knows his origin. They retell Bruce Wayne's or Batman's origin. Why? Why would you? Everybody knows it now. I mean, I don't even know why you should do that. But anyway, maybe I guess later in the movie it kind of came into play, so maybe there was a reason for it. But it just felt, I'm like, why am I watching this? I know all this. Um, the Nolan films, Christopher Nolan, who I saw, by the way, was an executive producer on on this movie, so he's involved somehow. But anyway, the Nolan movies weren't that long ago, and I mean everybody knows the TV shows and the comic books and the cartoons. I mean we know the origin, so I was like, why was that in there? But even after the movie comes together, and and the pacing is better, there's still it's still a little bit uneven. So I mean I think if there was ever a movie that needed re-editing, I mean this movie needs re-editing. So maybe the director's cut on the DVD that's another hour long or whatever. I don't know. Maybe it'll have better editing. Now, one thing that is cool that I noticed that comic book uh, fans will probably appreciate is Bill Finger, in addition to Bob Kane, gets on-screen credit as a co-creator for Batman. So that's cool. That's something that's been lacking for quite a while. A little inside baseball stuff for comic book lovers. They also one thing that jumped out at me. I'll try not to go into specifics, but they're really showing the repercussions and the fallout of violence and destruction. Like the end of Man of Steel was very violent, a lot of destruction. And in movies in the past, it was just and move on, and not really bring it back up again. But it kind of plays a role in this movie. It doesn't go unnoticed, and it has fallout that affects this movie quite a bit. And I've just got some notes here that I'm going through. Like I said, I'm trying to be very off the cuff, very knee jerk in my thoughts on this movie. Sometimes you can't tell whose movie it is, because it was originally supposed to be the sequel to Man of Steel, from what I understand. Then it became Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice. So of course they're talking about the Justice League. But I mean, sometimes is this Superman's movie? Is it Batman's movie? Is it Lois Lane's movie? I mean, Lois Lane, I think it's Amy Adams that plays her, and I really like the actress that plays Lois Lane in Man of Steel and this movie. I think she makes a great Lois Lane. When they did Superman Returns in I think like 2005. With Brandon Ruth as Superman, I did not like that Lois Lane. I mean, I'm sure the actress is fine, but I didn't like her as Lois Lane. So I liked her again in this movie. The lady that's playing, I think it's Amy Adams in these movies. Again, the setup, all the setup, the first half of the movie or so just felt very rough and uneven. The pacing was off. I was making notes during the movie. Literally in the dark trying to write on this. So, but one of the notes I put was that the setup feels rough and uneven. The pacing is off, and at times it felt like a lot of unnecessary movies surrounding a few interesting action scenes. That especially the first half of the movie felt that way, and even then, in the first half of the movie, I didn't think the action scenes were all that great. The color scheme, the way they're doing the colors, was like Man of Steel. Overly dark and dreary, in my opinion, and I know the opinion of others. In fact, I didn't watch the movie with this guy, but a friend of mine happened to be up there, and I talked to him after the movie, and he was like, it just seemed very dreary. So the movie feels dull and kind of dreary at times. Not just thematically or the tone of the movie, but the color, the appearance. The music, the cuts, the color scheme. It's almost even ponderous at times, especially in the first half. Dreary, very dark movie, in appearance. It felt like kind of emotionally muted at times. It was like the filmmakers, for the scenes that were happening, the characters, like they wanted me to care, but it's like they just hadn't done their job. I didn't care, and I was waiting for the next thing to happen so that I could care. That's the best way I know how to put it. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's going to sound like, if you're listening to this, that I hated the movie. I didn't hate the movie. I'm a comic book guy from way back, and I like action movies. And I don't feel like I wasted my money. I got to see Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman. That's not a spoiler. Everybody knows from the previews that Wonder Woman was in it, and perhaps some others, which I'm not going to go into that too much. But so I enjoyed it on a certain level, but it could have been a lot better. I felt like that, again, the editing or the pacing of this movie and the way that it just felt kind of dull and muted at times. So, and there's also this really bizarre dream sequence in the movie. I don't want to go too much into when or what it's about, And this the dream sequence, the scene itself, it's not in and of itself, it's not that bizarre. It's actually like if it was just a short film, like a fan film or something like that that was on the internet, or even if like a short film before the main feature, um, it was actually pretty interesting. But the way it was in the movie just felt kind of dropped in there, and it felt kind of bizarre compared to the rest of the movie. I don't want to I don't want to say anything more about it. I mean, if you see the movie, when the scene happens, you'll know what I'm talking about. So, Ben Affleck, there was a lot of Ben Affleck, he shouldn't be Batman. I thought he was fine, and I thought, in the previews and the movie stills that were being released ahead of time, and all, I thought he was fine, and I thought he was fine once the movie actually sat and watched it. He was fine. I had no problem with him. In fact, I thought he made a pretty decent Batman and Bruce Wayne. And I think Jeremy Irons was it that's playing Alfred. I thought Alfred was fine. Now, that doesn't mean that I didn't like Christian Bale. And oh man, I can't believe I'm forgetting the guy. Is it Michael Caine that played Alfred in the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy? Loved them. They were great. But I thought that Ben Affleck and Jeremy Irons were totally fine. And did a good job. So I didn't have any problems there. And in fact, I think that Ben Affleck looked great in the costume. One thing I didn't like was what I guess the Bat Cave. I didn't really like it. It seemed more like a dark corporate office than it did a Bat Cave. So I don't know. That was just kind of my take away from it. But that's set design, and I don't know. The actual costume and all that, and the interplay between Bruce Wayne and Alfred, I thought it was fine. So I think that was actually kind of a strong point of the movie. Yeah, I do think that Batman himself, how he was written, I guess, and how and therefore that's how Ben Affleck acted him. He seemed out of character in a lot of ways. He seemed a lot more ruthless and reckless with human life than the Batman that we know from the comic books and other media. He seemed ready to go to guns pretty easy, and he didn't the regard for life that really defines his character in the comics, and even in the animated stuff the last couple of decades. It either was completely absent at points or toned down at others. And he's not walking around just blowing people away and killing people, like, shooting them in the head or anything like that. I don't want to make it sound like that, but you'll probably see what I'm talking about if you watch the movie. He just, he just, was really fired up, I guess is the best way to put it. So, another note I had is sometimes I felt like this movie was trying too hard. And a statement like that's kind of hard to back up without going into spoilers, but at times it just felt, I kept getting pulled out of, there's this willing suspension of disbelief we have where we get sucked into the movie or the book or whatever, and there's stuff that'll jar us out of it, and that happened a lot with this movie where I was thinking more about the process of filmmaking that led to what was happening in these scenes rather than just enjoying the scenes themselves. So a lot of the action scenes were just really loud and big, without a whole lot of substance. In some cases, they felt like, a lot of the Transformers movies, especially the first one, but the second, third, fourth one, whatever. It's just like those action scenes where there's all this stuff going on, but it's really hard to tell like the whole big picture to really understand. Like, I don't really understand what's happening here. It's just loud and big and lots of stuff happening, and so I felt like a lot of the action scenes were like that. And I kind of felt like that at the end of Man of Steel as well. There was some stuff going on like that. But anyway, I thought the action scenes could have been better defined or whatever. They just felt big and loud and kind of in my face without really making an impression. I guess that's the best way to put it. Okay, so again, how do I go into this and be spoiler free? The movie is Dawn of Justice, right? So is the Justice League in it? And I really don't know how to go into this without spoilers, but so I'll just say yes and no, and I'm just going to leave it at that. And I know that's frustrating, but I think it's important to touch on that the Justice League is. I'm not even going to say anything else. So yes and no. Okay, so we know from previews that trailers that Supes and Bats and Wonder Woman are in it. We know that. So there's no spoiler that she shows up. However, when she does show up in full costume, I gotta say that was the biggest crowd reaction in the theater I was in. And I was talking to a couple of friends of mine after the movie, and it was same with the theater they were in. When she shows up, there's the crowd just really, clapping, and people like yeah and stuff like that. They really liked it, and I thought it was a good moment. I thought it was well done. And yeah, Wonder Woman looks great in this movie. I'm gonna is it Gal Gadot that's playing her? Both in and out of costume. I thought she did a good job as Wonder Woman. And there's again there's several scenes that revolve around her. Again, it's like the pacing didn't seem right. It just like I don't know if you remember how you had the Tim Burton Batman movies, and then was it Joel Schumacher that took over? Anyway, it started getting where they just kept shoving more and more stuff into each movie, like more villains, and you had, I think by the last one of that series, you had Mr. Freeze played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, and you had Poison Ivy played by is it Uma Thurman? And then you had they managed to get Bane in it, and then you had Robin already in it, and then you had Batgirl, and they were just shoving so much in that you're like, whoa! And now it wasn't that bad, okay? It didn't get to that level, but it started kind of inching towards that level where it's like, how much stuff are you going to try to introduce in one movie? And I understand they're setting up the Justice League movies. I get that, but that still doesn't excuse them from telling a well-paced, well-edited movie that makes a good coherent sense. So, like I said, it didn't get quite as bad as the last Batman movie from like the 80s and the 90s, but they were starting to put a whole lot into it. And before I forget to mention, I really thought I was going to like Lex Luthor, or Alexander Luthor's character better. From what I'd seen in the previews, I know is it Jesse Eisenberg? I think I'm saying that right. A lot of people are like, oh, we don't want him as Lex Luthor. I thought he looked fine. It seemed like he was kind of doing an evil Mark Zuckerberg. The actual way it went on screen was almost like an evil Robin Williams on speed, like this kind of, I don't know how to put it on like these rambly kind of, I don't know. I at no point during the movie did I understand why Lex Luthor was the villain. I mean, I understood he was the villain because he was doing bad things, but I had no clue why he was doing the stuff he was doing. So I'll just leave it at that. There's a few scenes where he's interesting, but I was kind of sold on him as Lex Luthor based on the previews and stuff, and then I was kind of less sold on him in the movie itself. Okay, so talking back to Wonder Woman and all that. There's a really sweet scene in the movie, and they've shown it in the trailers, but you get a better feel for it in the movie itself, as the context of the whole movie's around it, and you're in there, and the sound and boom, and you're in a theater, and it's when the so-called DC Trinity, really goes into action together for the first time. That kind of all three together in front of the camera, and I'm still kind of, ooh, that felt really good. It was a real nice movie moment, and it was a great movie moment for a comics geek. It was really nice. So, like I said, don't get me wrong. There's stuff that I liked about the movie. So don't think that I totally hated it. I'm just giving my thoughts about stuff that just occurred to me while I was watching it. So here's the thing: is there a clear winner in the Batman versus Superman part of the movie? Because it is Batman versus Superman, right? So the gladiator battle of the ages, or whatever as they say in the trailers. Well, so did they wimp out and make it a draw, or did they have the here's an old standby? They have the fight interrupted before it can be finished by something else happening, like a new danger coming on the scene. Well, nope. There is a clear winner, and I'm not going to tell you who it is. Um, but I will give thumbs up to the filmmakers for not wimping out and giving us a clear winner in the Batman versus Superman fight. And I won't say anything else. Um, there's also a pretty bold move, kind of an occurrence at the end of the movie. I didn't see it coming. I hadn't even heard rumors about it. I won't say what it is. And it caught me off guard. And it gave the movie, I don't know if it gave it more depth, but I did get more engaged with the movie and my feelings about the movie as a whole because of it. And before I forget to mention, I'll save you some time right now. There is no mid-credit scene and there's no post-credit scene. Myself and several other moviegoers sat through all the credits. There's not one. So just save yourself that time. I mean, if you want to watch, I love to watch credits. So if you just want to watch the credits, I mean, obviously do, but you're not going to get a zinger. You're not going to get any, an interesting little scene or anything like that that teases something else. So, and again, as an action movie, as a superhero movie, especially as a comics fan, yeah, I'm glad I'm sure I'll see it again. Even if the home edition Blu-ray or DVD or whatever wasn't going to have a whole lot of extra footage and a whole different cut to the movie. Um, you know, but I just don't think it's going to have the appeal and the word of mouth and the universal um, appeal that the other superhero movies, for the most part, are having. Like the Avengers movies, Captain America movies, um, Iron Man, even I'm trying to think. Not Spider-Man. Star Wars is a great example. That's a geek movie that has massive universal appeal. Batman versus Superman, I don't think is going to get that kind of word of mouth. Now, I do think it's going to do better with fans than it is the critics. I think it's going to be one of those movies the critics are just going to just totally savage it like they already are on Rotten Tomatoes. And the fans, for the most part, are going to like it. I think it's going to make money, and they're going to make more Justice League movies. I, for one, would be quite happy if they took, is it Zack Snyder, the guy that did Man of Steel and this movie, off of the Justice League stuff. Any more DC movies? I don't like his style. Um, it's okay for superhero movies not to be grim and dreary. Why he did Man of Steel in that muted style that he did, I actually saw, you can find it on YouTube, where somebody showed the original version of Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, and then right next to it they showed it recolored with brighter colors, and I loved it with the brighter colors. So why, I don't understand. I'm sure they have all these reasons they could explain from filmmaking and directorial this and blah blah, artsy this. I don't care. I don't like it as much. So maybe it kind of fits Batman, but it doesn't fit Superman. It doesn't fit Wonder Woman. It doesn't fit Flash. It doesn't fit all that. And that's a major problem I had with Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice. Uh, Again, good action flick, fun superhero flick, has some problems, not a disaster. I don't think it deserves 31%. So that's my final thoughts on it. My knee-jerk thoughts, anyway. I may do a more spoilery review in the days to come, but that's my initial thoughts on it. It could have been better. Um, there was some good scenes here and there, good moments here and there, but it definitely could have been a better movie. Um, so hopefully they've already got enough of this planned out that whether this movie is a raging success with critics and fans, we'll get more. I would hate for the whole franchise to be determined just on this movie. Even though I think it'll still make a lot of money. Now I don't want it to be another Transformers franchise, but the Transformers movies, the first one was pretty decent. All the ones after that were not that great in my opinion, but yet they still keep making them because I guess they're making money. So hopefully, you know, we'll definitely get some more Justice League that will improve. Um, so anyway, thanks for watching. If you like this, please, or if you have an opinion or a disagreeing opinion or whatever, leave it in the comments. Leave me a thumbs up. That helps me out tremendously. And don't forget to subscribe to the Shane Plays YouTube channel. Thanks so much for watching. And here's to the dawn of justice. It's a good time to be a geek.